Hi, this is Tentin the Navigator, and I am reading The Anunnaki Final Warning to Earth and Their Return in 2022, the 5th edition by Maximilien de Lafayette. And we're on part 3, Ghosts and Entities, Holographic Projections, 40 Days Period After Death. So this is a question and answer section. Question. I know you don't believe in ghost stories, but what about the idea that sometimes people see themselves like a ghost? I read about this in the Celtic story where a prince saw himself getting killed. Is it a hallucination or a prediction? By the way, the prince saw himself like a ghost, and in fact, he got killed shortly thereafter. So seeing ourselves as a ghost, is it an indication that something bad is going to happen to us? Could it be a holographic projection, like those images projected by aliens to impress or frighten abductees? Answer. Zama Ari refers to an experience where and when a person sees himself or herself as an image or as a ghost projected right before his or her eyes. This occurrence is also called Latabi in Anaka. In Ulamite, it is referred to as Kanuri, Kanurai. Usually, it is interpreted as an announcement of your death. Those three words, Zama Ari, Latabi, and Kanurai, are a term for the experience of encountering or seeing yourself as a duplicate image of your body. Ulema al-Bayadani commented on this. He said verbatim, "This is not a good sign. Usually the projection of the image of one's body predicts either a fatal event to occur in the very near future or his or her death within hours or a few days. Pets can easily see this image. It is not physical, however, it appears very clear to the naked eye. The image takes the form of a ghost looking at you. The ghost moves like a real person. Usually you see confusion and sadness on the face of the ghost. This is not hallucination or a trick of your mind. It is a holographic projection of event to occur. In other words, your mind, the supersymmetric mind, can sense and pre-visualize events before they happen. It's like reading a calendar backward, from the end instead from the very first day of the month. It is a rare occurrence, but it happens now and then. You asked, could it be a holographic projection, like those images projected by aliens to impress or frighten abductees? The answer is, it is a holographic mental image or imprint produced by your supersymmetric mind, but it is not similar to aliens' holographic projection because in the alien scenario, it is intentional, while in your own experience, it is a visual reading of the future event to happen very soon in your life at a personal level. I have never said that I do not believe in ghosts. What I have said is that I do not agree with the definition of a ghost as often given by charlatan mediums and fake channelers. Generally, those people refer to ghosts as the non-physical presence of a deceased person who manifests him or herself to express a concern, to warn us, to complain about the way he or she was murdered, to solve a mystery, to convey a message to loved ones left behind, etc. All these interpretations are false. Many mediums, channelers, and psychics are fake. They use the emotional weakness of their clients to dupe them and make a buck. This is evident when they start to ask for more money to reveal further information and messages from the deceased one who appears like a ghost. I do not believe that ghosts exist, I do believe that ghosts exist, but they do not manifest themselves the way it was described by physics. There are different categories of ghosts. Some apparitions are real, but are scarce. In 99% of all cases, the apparition is some sort of hallucination. In Ulamite terminology, a ghost is a non-physical imprint of a presence left on the screen of a metaphysical dimension very close to real life. I will explain. Everything in the universe includes people, rocks, plants, and living organisms have two dimensions. The one we can see, called physical reality, because we can measure and or define its dimensions, density, limits, color, shapes, etc. And the other dimension, which is called non-physical, because it escapes the measurements and normal means to assess and ascertain its physical existence and properties. In other words, your body has two dimensions, the physical one, which is defined, for instance, by your height, weight, shape of your face, color of your hair, etc., and the non-physical one, which is a duplicate or copy of yourself, the double, which existed before you were born. All of us have this duplicate copy, and without knowing it, we, our mind, or whatever you want to call it, consistently project our non-physical image, the duplicate copy of ourselves, wherever we go. This projection is called the non-physical imprint of our presence or ourselves. When we die, our body disintegrates. The imprint remains intact and does not disintegrate. So what people see as a ghost is in fact one of the many imprints we have left behind us after we have died. Yes, there are many imprints corresponding to many moments and times in our lives. Usually the imprint we see as a ghost is the last imprint we have made while we were alive. But it is very important to remember that apparitions of ghosts, projections, imprints, etc., occur for a very short time. During the 40-day period following the departure of the deceased, this is applicable when the deceased has left in peace and his or her mind has accepted the idea that she is or he is dead. Many deceased persons get so confused after their death for many reasons. Some still believe that they are alive and try to reach us in an incomprehensible manner. If the deceased person is no longer attached to this world, to materialistic values, to properties he or she once owned, and his or her mind is clear, then the deceased person will never again project him or herself as an imprint. He, she is dead and moves on to a different dimension, the realm of the afterlife. So the 40-day period after death is very critical, but this period could last for more than 40 days, sometimes for years, when the mind of the deceased is not clear. This explains the apparition of people who had died centuries ago. Interestingly enough, when a so-called ghost appears, it's always the same apparition. The ghost is dressed exactly in the same way, does not change outfits. He or she appears in defined areas, always in the same areas, such as a corridor, a balcony, and or going through walls and doors. The apparition never changes because it cannot change, being an imprint. So what we are seeing is not a real person coming back as a ghost, but it is one of his or her many imprints that he or she has left behind. Once a deceased has crossed the bridge of the 40-day period, no more apparitions or imprints will occur again. The deceased has left the earth for good, and by now he or she is far, far away from us. Thus, it becomes impossible to reach him or her. And also, so-called calling upon the dead and communications with the dead are false. You are already dead in one dimension and not yet born in another. You exist somewhere else, and somewhere else you are about to exist. Yet you are a living person right here and right now. How do we explain this? But this is not the most important question. The most important one would be, could you contact yourself in the other dimension, or would you? And what could you possibly gain from contacting the other you who lives far away from you? Or would you rather contact the other you in a dimension where you're not yet born and teach yourself in that dimension what you have already known and learned in another dimension? Yes, this is possible. If you are not fully convinced, why don't you ask a quantum physics professor? It might relieve you from your doubt. Right? And this concludes pages 235 to 238.